Ready to go!
Alrighty guys, I felt there was a need for a part 2 to this hand control, losing your wrist is a choice thing. And I wanted to address this part mostly towards the people that are making the comments that about Jerry Carteret and Todd Hutchins, how they choose to lose their hand for other reasons. Here's the thing, guys. Arm wrestling is broken up into those fundamentals that we described earlier. Remember, let's say hand, which involves, let's just basically say wrist flexion and pronation as the primary two factors for that one. Bicep driven back pressure, lat driven back pressure, and chest driven side pressure, or call it inner elbow, call it shoulder strength, call it whatever, winning the shoulder line. Those 4 groups of fundamentals, as I described them in the previous videos, were negatives that your opponent has to unwind in order to defeat you, and you can choose to trade or give up one of those negatives, 2 of those negatives, 3 of those negatives even, in order to protect the one negative that remains to keep you in the match. Now, in the last video I talked about hand control, or the wrist being the most important one that I tend to think is the one that I would give up last. Now, here's the thing, and even this leads into a little bit of disagreements, not actually disagreements, I don't know, but these lead into potential disagreements that I have with Devin Larratt when it comes to arm wrestling theory. As I described before, giving up drag first, giving up chest second, giving up bicep third, and finally protecting the hand as long as you can, protecting even giving up wrist but keeping pronation as long as you can is the last line of defense. That for me is a typical shape that I am in when I am against someone who is shorter than me. But if I was against someone taller than me, the order in which I protect things is different. And that's what makes the beauty of this sport so amazing, is that every single arm wrestler that you face is going to bring a different set of tools. They're going to have a different ratio of power on those different fundamentals. And you as an arm wrestler, it is your job to either research and know what those ratios are going to be and formulate a plan based on that, or if you don't know them, and this is why I love super matches, you can grip them, you can feel them, you can audit their strengths right from the round 1. And even if you lose round 1, you can go, okay, here's where their strengths were, here's where the ratios of their powers exist, and you can formulate a plan as to which negatives to give up in what order to make it the best chance of you getting a stop and an eventual victory. Now, take Todd Hutchins or Jerry Carteret as an example. Todd Hutchins has specialized on making side pressure his weapon. And that is because Todd Hutchins' elbow to wrist is 10 inches, 2 inches shorter than my elbow to wrist. So he has a very short forearm, which gives him tremendous ability to just go sideways. He is, of course, willing to trade his hand before he is willing to trade his pec and shoulder. And that's because Todd has more potential here than he does in keeping his hand and opening his arm. Devin Larratt, on the other perspective, long arm, I think his elbow to wrist is like 14 inches, 2 inches longer than mine. It's not in his best interest to give up his hand and keep his shoulder, because he doesn't have the same potential as a Todd Hutchins does on that being his strength. Devin's allocation is much more similar to what I talked about in the previous video, cupping and pronation being the greatest assets he has out of all of the fundamentals. Todd Hutchins' greatest asset is side pressure. Hand control for Todd is the least out of all of those things. He would value back pressure, side pressure, and dragging pressure way above hand control, and that makes sense given it's Todd. Jerry Carteret, we know that Jerry Carteret has a mean hook, and if he can go into a hook with someone that he is balanced with, he will. That's where he is strongest. But Jerry will trade his hand to keep shoulder and side. Why does Jerry do that? Because the way Jerry's built, the way Jerry's trained over the years, he has developed a greater ability in this weapon, in his side pressure and shoulder drive weapon, than he has in his hand. Now, the question always comes back to, where is this at for you? And where does this balance you relative to the opponent you're about to take on? And therefore, which of these negatives are you going to choose to protect with everything? And which of these negatives are you going to be prepared to sacrifice in order to stay in the match? Because at the end of the day, guys, and this was the main point of the last video, and it's the main point again, is that if you try to protect all 4 of those things and just pin, if you're against someone who is equal to you in strength or stronger than you in strength, you are simply going to lose. But that's not the end of the story. We know that if you fight and you realize you're going to lose and you're willing to trade and sacrifice those things in order to gain other things, you're still in the fight. So anyway, the main message of this video, of part 2 of losing your hand being a choice, is that the hand isn't always the most valuable. For different athletes that have different anatomies and that have spent years developing different strengths in their priority order of those 4 fundamentals that we've described, which order they are willing to give up those fundamentals in is going to vary. And it's going to vary not only for one given match, but it's going to vary and it's going to change depending upon who they are facing. If Todd Hutchins is facing Sasha Andreev, it'll be different compared to Todd Hutchins facing Devin Larratt, on which of those fundamentals he would give up. Of course, Sasha Andreev is even shorter than Todd, so therefore Todd's value on his hand would be much, much greater. If Todd lost his hand against Sasha Andreev, he would lose the match for sure. Todd is going to protect his cup a hell of a lot more against Sasha than he would against Devin Larratt. Guys, there's so much to the mastery of this sport. I truly believe that it's almost an unlimited resource. I think that you could spend your lifetime exploring the intricacies of this sport and you probably would never really get there. Don't get me wrong, this is a strength sport. This is a sport where the stronger man wins. The stronger man rules. The stronger man will always reign supreme. However, when the stronger man faces another strong man, what will happen is you'll have to add their strength with their ability, and strength plus ability equals their total value in the fight. And at the end of the day, albeit a small factor, the fact that there is a factor means that you want to go all in on understanding the technique. You don't want to just be strong, because that will limit your potential. Be strong, but also know how to use your strength and develop the strengths in the right areas. For me, the last 6 months of me developing my side pressure strength was because I just felt it was a big inadequacy. I don't feel like side pressure arm wrestling is everything. I feel like it is one of the one of the 4 fundamentals that need to be fully developed in order to be able to choose wisely on which fundamental to give up in a close battle. This is what makes Supermatch arm wrestling so entertaining for me, and that's why I love it so much, is because I can feel and choose and evolve throughout the match and find a way to win, when typically you wouldn't expect it to be possible, because my opponent may, on the surface level, seem stronger. Anyway, that's why I'm going to beat Rob Vigent when the day comes, is because Rob doesn't want to believe any of this. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I hope that made some sense. Yeah, leave me some comments. See you guys.
Yes, that's a man!